Okay, so after the last video that I talked about karmic energy, I saw a couple places. I said I would do another video on it if I saw a couple places where something, you know, could be explained, or if there was like a hole in it. And I guess for all of intents and purposes, I kind of feel like I found a couple of holes in it. So I'm going to do a couple more videos on this, okay? This is facing... Alright, this is going to be upside down. Same with this. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so I'm going to take that as me being clumsy. So the last video that we talked about, it was kind of more of like a general energy of the situation. This video is going to kind of be like examples of like individual, not instances, but like individual examples of what karmic energy would look like. So in a general sense again, but so in a way where you could, like, if you saw it, you could identify it, okay? This is another message, by the way, that doesn't want to get out, because it's like every single time I try to do some of these messages or something, you know, whatever, it's just there's like an influence, there's an I was going to call it an interception, but you know, it's kind of like that, to the point where it's a little bit harder to get the message out. So just kind of bear with me for a second as I kind of, you know, get the cards on the table, and we'll talk immediately while I'm doing this. So this right here is the 5 of Cups in reverse. Now, a lot of times the 5 of Cups in reverse is like, so this is going to be like how this energy, it's going to be how the energy presents, but it's also going to be like how it's influenced on you. In other words, since we're talking about the energy and how it looks, then we're actually talking about like how you perceive it. So, you know, like I said, I'm going to be as general as possible to kind of help you understand. Most of the time, you know, in situations, and especially situations like this, I look at things differently than a lot of people. And so sometimes when I express my views, they are different than what like somebody thought about. And that is the purpose of this video, to kind of show you that side, so that, you know, you can be exposed to it, so that you can experience it, so you can kind of, like I said, identify it, so that you could decide for yourself, right? So I'm getting bits and pieces of things. So let's go back to that 5 of Cups. So that 5 of Cups energy is kind of like a sorrow, in a way it's like crying over spilt milk, because a lot of times in traditional tarot, you know, pictures, I was going to call them pictorials, there's cups that are upright, but they don't see the cups that are upright because they're concentrating on the cups that are, I was going to say sour. Oh my God. All right. So concentrating on the cups that are like spilled, you know. Sometimes people act like, oh, you know, the 5 of Cups, you know, they're just crying over spilled milk. They can't see what they have, you know, they don't appreciate whatever, you know, they're focusing on what they lost. You know, in some cases, maybe, I think to a certain extent, for the purposes of this video and having it be in reverse, I feel like, this is more of a depiction of how someone feels when they kind of present themselves in a karmic energy. I feel like to a certain extent, yes, they are crying, you know, over things that they may have lost, because I feel like a lot of times to a certain extent there's like almost like a punishment involved for different behaviors. It doesn't have to be, you know, anything that somebody really doesn't like. It's just more of a retaliation for, like, I want to call them like triggers, right? Like mental triggers. Maybe you don't even have to do anything, but the person feels a certain way about something, and so this stems some kind of behavior. So I feel like this Five of Cups in reverse is kind of like the state that someone has to be in to take their sorrows and their woes and turn them on to someone else. I mean, typically that's more of like a narcissistic or, maybe even sociopathic kind of way to function, where, you kind of make other people you punish other people for like what you experienced or whatever, something to that effect, right? Because not everybody that's experienced negative vibration, lower things that happen in their life that were uncomfortable, not everybody turned into a narcissist, not everybody turned into a sociopath when they experienced that. So this is kind of like what I'm talking about. You have to be a special kind of person for starters. So think about it in terms of for everything, there's a positive and a negative energy. There's already like balance. So when we're talking about karmic energy, we're talking about examples of lower energy or lower vibrations, okay? So we're talking about like sadness, and of course we're talking about like anger and some other things, right? But that doesn't make it necessarily karmic. Let's put it this way, just because it's lower vibration doesn't necessarily make it karmic. Like, you could be sad and it could not be karmic, okay? So I just want to be really clear and have you understand like what we're talking about, okay? But it is the lower vibration of things. So let's say let's say there's confidence, like in any situation, let's just say that there's confidence present, right? But karma, the particular karma that we're talking about, because again, karma is balanced. And we will address that at some point so that we can talk about it in the terms of that people normally talk about with karma, the give and take or the payback kind of thing. This is like that, but this is like a facet of it. And sorry, I'm wheezing because of that sage. But this is a facet of it because this is something that shows itself in a lot of situations, and particularly dating situations. So that's why we're branching this off and talking about it, specifically. But, let's say the karmic energy, for lack of better words, doesn't like the confidence, okay? So then we would be more talking about doubt, someone who isn't confident in themselves, but who doubts themselves, right? So the karmic energy typically will want to take that confidence and they'll want to change it. They'll be, because the karmic energy, if you're confident, it doesn't thrive as well. So it needs to kind of keep you in doubt. So this is kind of like what we're talking about. So we take that lower vibration and we turn it into something else that's manipulative, okay? So I got some extra cards here, which is totally what I wanted. So I'm gonna talk about those when I get to those. In fact, I'm gonna put them all together so it denotes that they're extra, because there may be more extra cards. Okay, so this Five of Cups here, I feel like is like I said, a state a person has to be in to not only, when they experience that, process it enough to understand it enough, but then it's to use that manipulation to use that information to, and to manipulate someone else, based on like their pain or their desire or their greed or, their want for power or control or whatever the reason is. A lot of times for us, we might experience the same thing. Like, we might have 5 of our friends and we might all have experienced the same thing, but the person that did the thing to us might have all wanted different stuff. So they might have wanted, one might have wanted control, one might have wanted power. So that's why a lot of times we speak in general terms, because when we're talking about certain situations, they're similar to other situations, and the concept that we're talking about applies. And that's why we're able to get more messages across about more things when they are general, because a lot of concepts, if you talk to the divine and you ask them certain questions or whatever, a lot of times you'll find out that the responses are very similar. They're very similar to their other responses. It's almost like they answer a lot of things with a limited number of responses, and they answer them accurately. So it's one of those things where when you're looking at things, and especially in terms of energy, you have to understand that once it changes a little bit, it becomes something else. It's not like sadness, and then when you're more sad, it's sadness. Sometimes it might turn into depression, or sometimes it might turn into what somebody might call profound sadness or prolonged sadness, or whatever goes on. So there's facets of this lower vibrational or negative energy that you can get caught into, and a lot of times when this starts, you don't necessarily see it coming because it's mild. It comes in a little bit. I wanted to read this card. Curious, quick-witted, intelligent, nosy, stalker, watching everything message. Okay, so this is, yeah. I knew about the stalker part, but I didn't make the connection until I read that. So sometimes when you're dealing with that negative energy, in that last video, we called it that Queen of Wands energy in reverse. And that King of Swords in reverse energy has it too, where they'll kind of, they'll know everything you're doing. It's a control thing, and it's kind of like almost a little bit of a greedy thing. They'll have your phone, your location set. They'll know where you are. They'll be maybe even the type of person that will call you up and be like, hey, why are you taking so long at the grocery store? Stuff like that, right? So this is that karmic energy that we're talking about. And again, we're going to explain why that makes it karmic, but probably not so much in this video, because I want to take the rest of this video to highlight these types of behaviors, these types of traits that the karmic energy brings. Again, just because someone's sad doesn't make it a karmic situation. However, it could make it a karmic situation if you get involved. Like, let's say you're an empath and you get involved in their sadness, and all of a sudden the two of you are together sad because this person can't get over their sadness. Then that's going to be, trauma bonds / codependency / some other stuff that will bring you karma. This is kind of like what we're talking about, okay? So situations. So we have this death card here, which I also wanted to read. Ending, transformation, new beginning, pain, hurt, unexpected change, growth. Okay. So to a certain extent, I feel like this is like the person who's experiencing the karmic situation, or the karmic person, because a lot of times I feel like, and it's not always true, but a lot of times I feel like if we've experienced the karmic situation before and then we walked right back into it again, then we just didn't get the lesson the last time, obviously. But I feel like this death card is almost, the ending is just as prevalent as the new beginning when we walk into these situations and we don't realize that we're walking into them with a karmic partner. So we walk into this new beginning, and it takes this like cycle of however many times to spin that wheel for the person to wake up, to realize that they're in something they don't want to be in. Because again, there's many layers to this. There's, figuring out that you're in it and then trying to get out of it and then getting out of it mentally, kind of thing, right? And then in the last video, we talked about getting it out of your energy, which is a totally different thing. I mean, it's a little bit connected to getting it out, mentally, but not 100%. You can forget about it; it could still be lingering around, right? So then we had this Hermit in reverse, which I wanted to read it upright. Introvert, meditation, higher perspective, spiritualist, unique, alone, soul searching. So I feel like the reason why the Hermit is in reverse is, again, because you're not allowed to be alone, not for too long. Being alone would build confidence. Being alone would allow you to rest. Being alone would allow you to recuperate from the things that happen in karmic situations from one day to the next, and you'd be able to fight it better. I mean, I don't see strength on the table right now, but it might come up later. So, it's kind of like one of these things. I'm kind of picking this up a little bit as that. But, when you're in a situation like this, it's not like you have a lot of time to yourself. So again, if you start this situation and you're like in love with somebody, not being alone very much in the honeymoon, I almost called it the funnymoon phase. In the honeymoon phase, you might not mind so much being with that person all the time. But then later on, when things change, when they're in that Five of Swords energy, you're not going to like it, and you won't see it coming, because all of a sudden this card is going to flip, to something else. So that Five of Swords is mind games, lack of intimacy, deception, playing to win, victory at all costs, and silence. So it's upside down. I feel like, again, with this new beginning, when we start with somebody, we don't realize necessarily that, I feel like through the course of this not being left alone but still enjoying it type of situation, we don't realize that that person was conniving the entire time. Even when we turn around and we figure out what we're in, we don't realize that that person did that on purpose, which a lot of times is what I say. Because again, even if you couldn't say, well, maybe they're just controlling about this person because they like them so much. A lot of times I go back and I look at the situation for how it was, and I realize that it was so smooth. It went through so smooth. This person must have practiced this move. I mean, how on earth could it be that perfect, right? And I feel like sometimes it's that situation, and I feel like sometimes when you don't bring that, and especially, like I said, if this is the first time dealing with it, you're not dealing with karmic situation after karmic situation, this is the first one, you may not see that right away, right? But I'm going to tell you, because I also got intelligence off of this. If you have somebody who's smart and they have a tendency to have some kind of lower vibration, it doesn't have to be, somebody who's vindictive or somebody that it could be anything. Then I would say don't assume that they're going to act any certain way. They may be unpredictable, especially if it's been a little while, if you haven't really 100% properly got to know them. I feel like this Fool is that as well. This Fool in reverse is kind of like me stepping off the edge and saying, we're going to go, hopefully it's fun, or, kind of however they present that Fool energy with the faith. But I feel like with it being upside down, it's us not really paying attention to what we're doing. We are stepping off that cliff, but we're not really paying attention. We don't, we have faith, but we don't really know what we have faith in. So I don't know that we're 100% covered, because I almost kind of feel like sometimes even to get sucked into that, or to get sucked, being in it with cycles, you almost have to believe nothing, because at some point I feel like this karmic person, or this person who's behaving karmically, will cross some kind of path of some belief or something that you have that will make you put your foot down and go, okay, you know what? And I also pick that card up like that this card is that rock bottom, that place where, again, it's the new beginning, where you didn't see how they were, you didn't see that they were conniving, but then that whole trip of how you couldn't be alone to take you all the way down to where you kind of go, okay, you know what, I don't care what this is, I don't like it. We know it's this Two of Cups in reverse. So even if we didn't know what the Two of Cups was, we know that this is not what we wanted. So aside from any particular way that someone might act who's, again, acting karmically, it doesn't feel good. This is kind of how you know you're in it, because it doesn't feel good. It just doesn't feel good. You either feel like you're being pushed around, or you feel like you're being ignored, or you feel like you're being bullied. Pushed around is the same thing. But trust and believe, when you look at stuff in degrees, and you look at, how many different emotions, lower vibrational emotions are involved, these things that I'm saying, these words that I'm using, they look different. You could be tormented by somebody who does the same thing 5 different ways, depending on who you choose, how smart they are, conniving they are, how much damage they think, they've been through, and what they should give to someone else, and, if they even care to do that, to go through that energy. I mean, I have this 5 of Pentacles here as an extra card. We could just forget it, but that's probably why I mentioned the sociopath, because a sociopath will go out of their way to make somebody else unhappy, even if it's to their detriment, because I just want to see other people miserable. But again, this is what I'm talking about. If we get into a relationship with these people and we're kind of asking for it, especially if we see something in them in the beginning that kind of proves that they don't really care how we feel. I mean, it just really takes just that. It's not complicated, right? I have this what's called the 5 of Waves. The 5 of Wands upside down, which is upright. It's challenges, obstacles, fights, petty arguments, drama, resistance, jealousy. So yes, and when I saw it, and when I saw it sitting over there, I thought, yes, that's what this card is. And right now it's sitting upside down. Oh my God, now it's just turned around. It's flipped over. I think ultimately that's also because, again, when we start this thing in the beginning, we don't expect that it's going to be so miserable, especially in the beginning when we're with somebody, like I said, during that honeymoon phase, where we're like giggling and laughing and having a good time and doing all the stuff that we wanted to do while we still have money or whatever is going on. You know, I mean, sometimes this is what we're talking about right now, meeting or whatever. Like, this is before we have the kids. This is before we don't have money to go out. This is before other stuff starts happening that makes us, you know, the loser at home because we can't provide because, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is kind of like what I'm talking about. It's any situation, but it is the fighting. And even though we might think that relationships go with fighting, which they don't, we might think that this is too much fighting. Too much fighting, and we never wanted to get into it that much, and in some cases we don't even like what we're in enough to fight about it. And this is the Seven of Pentacles. And the Seven of Pentacles, I want to say it was upside down. It might have been upright. When I just grabbed it, I was talking. But it kind of, you know, basically looks like it belongs like that to me, because I feel like once we start realizing how much fighting that we wanted to have or didn't want to have, I mean, you know, then we get to the point where we realize, you know, at what point we didn't want to work on this anymore. It kind of reminded us of how much we wanted to work on it when we were, you know, in the beginning. But like I said, you know, that was back when we didn't realize we were being watched, or we didn't realize we were being connived, or we didn't realize that someone was beginning to start their stuff. You know, we did want to work on it. But now, depending on what we go back and what we figure out, here's that Eight of Wands working on it with this Death card beginning it. Once we started working on it, you know, we didn't realize that this plot, this thing that had started had already begun. And a lot of times too, it's kind of like what I said over here about this card. It's not just about being in that negative energy. You have to be in that negative energy and want to control someone else. You have to be in that negative energy and want to like torture somebody else. Like, maybe you don't want anything, but maybe you feel like you were abused or something in relationships. So then maybe you don't even know how to be in a relationship. You just give that back to every relationship that you have. You know, it doesn't matter how it looks, because it looks different for different people. And this is what I mean about the general messages. Because, you know, sometimes you can find out in that person's history what happened to make them behave that way, but it doesn't solve the problem. You can't fix it from there. And so I feel like this is this Knight of Wands coming in as a Knight of Wands, but I feel like this is the Knight of Wands being viewed as the Knight of Wands in reverse. And then we have this Eight of Cups. At some point, it's mean and there's abandonment. And I feel like that's why in this particular depiction that some of the cups are knocked over. Because we don't even, when we walk away from it, and what it looks like, maybe even to others, it looks like we have 8 cups. We know we don't. And we know even if we did, somebody is there to take them away from us. That's what we know. It takes away our light. It takes away who we want to be. It takes away how we want our relationship to be. It takes away how we want our significant other to be, because we're not allowed to have any choices. Part of it is power. Part of it is control. Maybe you want a certain type of furniture, but you keep getting told no. Maybe you even know that person doesn't even care what type of furniture we have. They just want to control you, kind of thing. Want to control your world. And so then you figure out that this isn't even really much of a relationship, because you don't have a say. I'm trying to see where don't have a say is on the table. Yeah, well, I kind of feel like it's here right at the very beginning. Because in a way, even if you grew up with this person, I think that when you both look back on that person's past or what they thought other people did to them, I think that you both would not necessarily agree of how it went down. You know, which again is a narcissistic energy. So we do have in these extra cards here, well, we have this Eight of Cups walking away. We talked about our world being upside down, and then we have this like Page of Wands. I think ultimately, no matter what happens in situations, because this is an extra card, and it's here with this King of Cups in reverse, which the King of Cups, I feel like is someone who controls they're passionate because they have emotions, but I feel like they have their emotions in check. I feel like the King of Cups in reverse, it's a possibility that this person might be like prone to tantrums. And again, this is kind of like what I'm talking about. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You can have the emotion, but how you express it to, and especially how you express it to another, is a totally different thing. And even if you put your emotion onto another and you say, you know, I feel this way and you have to take it, you know, there's a whole different thing about making them feel like it's their fault. And this is also what I'm talking about, the degrees of how this can go down, right? Either way, once you get that one message where you kind of go, hey, this isn't my fault, then you start to realize, and then you start to realize. And then I also have this Knight of Cups upside down, because I feel like after a while we fall out of love. We just fall out of the torch that we're carrying for someone else because A, we don't like the way we're being treated, but more importantly, we don't like the person that's treating us that way. Because we didn't, you know, most of the time, like I said, ask for it. We didn't see it coming. So we weren't like that. And so when we figure out how mean someone is and like overpowering, because in some cases we do have boundaries, we can speak up for ourselves. We know how to tell people, hey, you know, stop treating me that way. But for some reason in this situation, we don't have a voice. This can be real. And I've always said, you know, if you're not, you know, in captivity, you can always leave, you know, and I get how hard that is. So this is mystery. This is the Kraken. This has come out before. I'm still going to pull another I'm still going to pull another row here, but I wanted to get some of the shadow stuff out so that we could talk about it with that third row. That mystery to me is, again, like I said, when the thing starts, we don't realize what's happening. We don't realize that it started. We don't realize that there's a plan, or, I almost said commotion when I said plan, and then it was like a commotion planned. And so, again, it's one thing, because I got that mystery card on the table, to do something under wraps, like to start something and not show your hand, and then to continue to do something like maybe behind somebody's back or something. But then, it's a completely different thing to do that and then eventually have it like come out, like be in their face. There's two different things now. Again, we're talking about, this is to me two different statements. Maybe you want me to, know about this, and maybe you don't, but maybe you let me find out about it, or maybe you make sure I find out about it. It's kind of all the same thing. It's that vindictive, negative energy, right? So that's why a lot of times on my channel too, I'll talk about not getting caught up in the details. Like, again, people like hurt other people, and then people go, well, why'd you do it? Why'd you do it? And then what happens is a lot of times the reason why they did it, and especially like if they're not healed or not healed while they're telling you why they did it, a lot of times it's a story you don't necessarily need to hear. Again, they weren't healed when they did it. And if you're healed and you're listening to how stupid they were, it's not much of an apology. It's more of like kind of, again, like kicking you when you're down. Oh, well, I did it because you were pregnant and I thought you were ugly. Again, that's a reflection of the character of the person who did that to you, not anything that has anything to do with you. That's them being shallow. And in the beginning, they didn't show you that. And that's, the mystery card could be, I don't know, fairies, but instead it's the Kraken. Kraken comes up from underneath your ship and then squeezes the crap out of it and kills everybody. Right? That's the kind of mystery we're talking about here on the table right now. I'm trying to get more shadow cards. Okay, I did get another one. This one is regeneration. It's Hydra, but it's upside down. Again, I feel like that's the resilience that's being sucked out of a person who's in like a karmic relationship, because they're not allowed to regenerate. They're not allowed to come back from it, you know. It does take that walking away from the situation, or at least if they're stuck, walking away from certain things in the situation to preserve their energy. Because otherwise, it's like completely unbearable. This two, especially like I said, this Two of Cups in reverse on the table is going to make it even more and more unbearable if the person was 100% in love and now they're just 100% in like apathy. Because again, the opposite of love is not hate. It's not caring. So again, if somebody's burned for love as they're growing up or whatever's going on, and even as an adult, and then they turn around and they say they hate everybody because of the way they've been treated about love, that's not the opposite of love. If you've been treated bad in love and you these cards are acting crazy right now. If you've been treated bad in love and you want to treat everybody like crap and hurt everybody because of it, that's not the opposite of love. That's something else. This is focus. I feel like this is there too, because I feel like a lot of times these people who are conniving, they will try to find out what your triggers are and then trigger you. It's part of, again, part of this, any of it, the power, the control, whatever it is, part of it is getting the response from you. Because A, they want to know if you're going to allow them to control or exert their power over you or whatever's going on. Because the first indication would be for you to say no, or for you to give some reason why you're not doing that. But if you go along with it, then the next time they push you or the next time they try to do something else, and remember, this isn't just one thing a lot of times. With the karmic energy, negative energy is one thing. Negative energy on top of negative energy on top of negative energy used and twisted in the wrong way is karmic. And it's not going to be just one situation, because if it's working, it's working. If you're going to work every day and you're providing for somebody who's abusing you, it's working for them. All right. This deck might not be talking anymore. Except for when it tried to throw half the deck on the table. Okay. Oh, okay. I got 3 more cards. Interesting. We are going to take them. Let's see what they are. All right. So I have Respect, which is Anubis. I have the Underworld, which is Hades. I'm going to take that as the Devil card. And then I have Resilience at I think it says Scylla. It looks like Medusa. But this is what we were talking about, this resilience and this inability to have it, this inability to regenerate, this inability to come back better because of the constant. And not only is it always coming at you, but it's coming at your weaknesses, like I said, your triggers. And this one again was, the respect. A lot of times too, when we're in a situation and we are in love, and especially like when our love is being used against us, but it doesn't change us as people, we continue to give these people respect because that's what we're about. And a lot of times they'll take advantage of that too, because like I said, when you take that first step for them, they want to see how many more steps you'll take, or how many dangerous steps you'll take for them. Sometimes to feed their ego, sometimes because, to torture you. Like I said, it depends on where they want to take this, how they want to take this negative energy, right? So now we're going to do that third row. So that first row right there is that, being upset about something that happened in our life to the point where we want to exert, pain on other people. And it's on top of this 5 of Wands in reverse, right? Which is coming off now as like not wanting to fight with people. But I think that's also why we have everything kind of under wraps. We're not exerting like full force on somebody. We're not abusing our power necessarily. We're kind of finagling it. Like if we're sucking the life out of people, we're not doing it in front of their face. I mean, we are, but we're doing it like how, you would do it if you were sneaky. I'm not standing there with the hose, in the gas tank when you can clearly see me in the side view mirror. I'm kind of standing behind the car doing my thing where you can't see me. you know, and you know you're losing gas, but you don't know where it's going. You don't know why, you don't know how. You know, it's funny, I just got this flashback. Oh my God, this is a long time ago. So when I was 16, my car it was my first car. And, you know, nobody really sat down and said, hey, if this happens, if this happens, if this happens, you know, it means this, you know. But at the time I was I was losing gas. And I couldn't figure out what it was. And at one point I told my mom, I was like, I don't understand what's happening. You know, I'm putting gas in it, but then it's not there. And I can't tell, like, if there's, you know, I thought someone was stealing my gas, right? And then I think it was like a week or two later, I had my dad look at it. And he's like, it was like dumping gas somewhere in my car. I can't remember where it was now. Like I said, I was 16. This is like almost 40 years ago. He was like, didn't you know you were losing gas? And my mom was like, well, yeah, she thought somebody was stealing it. And it's after that car, like I pretty much have a locking gas cap all the time now. So I have a locking gas cap. So when I'm losing gas at any time, I know that no one's stealing it. And I feel like it's that thing where you're losing gas, but you don't know where it's coming from. So you know you're losing it, right? You know, okay, look, you know that you're losing power in a situation, especially if it's a situation that you want to have power in. Like say you're the head of the family, but you have no control over what's happening. This is what I'm talking about. You know you're losing power, but you don't know like where it went or how you lost it or when did that happen. You have no clue. You're just kind of standing there like, oh my God. And it was because in the beginning, when you didn't see the conniving and you didn't see what was going on and you just let somebody have free reign because you thought you were just giving them what they wanted. You didn't realize it was a power thing. You didn't realize you were giving up power. You were consenting. It's like a vampire. This is the Six of Swords. It's like inviting them into your house. Oh, don't stay out there. Come on in. Oh, look, something else flipped over. The Eight of Swords in reverse. So a lot of times our Eight of Swords is a self-imposed prison, right? And I just talked about giving up power and how, that could be considered a self-imposed prison. However, I feel like this kind of walking away card too, or it is kind of, it's like I'm taking my swords and leaving kind of thing. I kind of feel like it's not, it's not like, as far as us, when we give up that power, we walked away from having control. I think in some situations, people didn't want to make all these decisions. They were like, oh, you decide. If you care about it, you decide. That's cool. I don't care as long as you're happy kind of thing. That's how it starts. And then the next thing you know, they have more control and you don't have any, and it's not self-imposed. When you try to get out of it, you can't. Yeah, and getting out of it could be something as simple as wanting to go golfing on Sundays. And all of a sudden this person knows you want to go golfing on Sundays. So on Sundays there's a list of shit for you to do. And you can go golfing afterwards, but you'll never finish that list. You can have two of your friends come over and help you. And then you've turned into a little kid. And you realize, what happened? At what point did I become somebody's child? Again, it's kind of like that. Why can't I have certain furniture? And why can't I wear my hair this way? And why can't I wear these clothes? Yeah. When we take away from what we're excited about in the relationship, this Knight of Wands here, all the things that we thought about on our own before we even got into this situation, then we become ho-hum about the whole thing. We don't, in some cases, again, these cups might be full. They might be full of shit. Not really sure, but we're not taking that one. If we really liked what we had, we'd reach out and grab that one. Oh, you're giving me more of what I want? We're like, no, again, I have three. I've said that before. I have three. And you know, sometimes with this karmic energy, it's not just you under someone's thumb. Okay, so now we have the King of Pentacles in reverse. We have the Queen of Cups upright. We have the Sun in reverse. We have, this is the Seven of Swords upright and the Tower upright. All right, let's look at these. That's pretty much what I wanted. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is extra right here. These two are extra. So, we were talking about how we don't want what we're being given now because none of it's good. Sometimes it is that way. Now, again, it doesn't have to be all terrible, but let's say it's just all lower vibration, right? So some of it's torment, but some of it's just, like we said, sadness. Maybe sometimes this person isn't yelling and screaming, and sometimes they're just sad, and we're okay with them sad because when they're sad, they're not abusing us. It's still going to be a lower vibration, right? So maybe all the time we're in a lower vibration, that kind of weighs on us. So we get to the point where, like I said, we don't really want to take any of it. We don't want any of it. We want to just ditch the whole thing, right? And then we have this King of Pentacles in reverse, and that's a lot of times because I was going to say it's sucking who we are, but it's also sucking our money, right? And then this Queen of Cups energy, at one point when we realized we stepped off and we didn't care what we were stepping to, and we have this star energy upside down, we went towards somebody who didn't necessarily deserve it. It highlights where we should have gone. It highlights where we should be. Which is where the Sun is upside down with this Two of Cups upside down and this World upside down. It highlights everything. You start to realize that even if you didn't have much of imagination, you could identify the opposite of what you've already gotten, right? And you want to kind of sometimes take some stuff and run. And sometimes you can't because you're sharing some of the stuff that you want to take with someone else. That's the problem. And to a certain extent, when that presented itself, that was part of the design, to have you blind, to have you, in some ways feel under someone's thumb, not necessarily trapped, because you might be in a spot where you might still be able to get out of it. And that's why when we go after what you're soft about, like your vices or your triggers, or we go after something that will suck you back in with us, because that's what we do here when we're trying. It's our way of getting you to agree to the situation, to agree to the behavior, to agree what I'm giving you. Because in the end, I am just going to give you more. Like especially if I'm greedy and this is working for me with this King of Pentacles upside down, I want more, I want bigger. And if I make enough noise, sometimes I can get it. I'm not going to let it go. I'm not going to let it go. So I think that's good here for the karmic traits, and let's get into the next one until we meet again.